I just remember where.
Next, like, 30 minutes. So I got, like...
30 minutes?
Oh, 30 seconds. I'm so sorry. That makes sense.
I was about to say, hold on.
Yeah, you're about to be like, what the fuck? I can't wait no 30 minutes. I got a chiropractor appointment at 1:30.
Dude, my dog smells like actual ants.
Ooh.
I just want you to know that. Anyway.
Let's make this go full screen. That way it looks nicer. There we go. Alright, so once you get the stream pulled up, tell me how the quality is. Because right now, on my end, you're actually running really nicely. This is a lot better. It's going a lot better than the first time.
Yeah, no, literally it was like
Yeah, you were like breaking in and breaking out. The video was choppy, but right now you're actually running pretty smooth. So I'm trying to get you pulled up. DayDreams podcast right here. 0 viewers. Hell fucking yeah, boy.
Like 12-hour man versus stream to YouTube, and one of the comments is, I'm tired of streamers.
Okay, I can hear your
videos to be over 10 minutes.
I know. I'm trying to not have any of that, but I'm trying to find.
You actually, the quality of your video looks better on the phone than it does on the PC, because I think it's just because it's smaller pixels.
Are you just on Dylan Cali, or are you on DayDreams?
DayDreams. It should be live like right about now, like officially sending out the notification and everything. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I'm just looking for it.
Well, I'm on it. Base.
Damn. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Dang, my face is huge on there. All right.
Well, I'm trying to make you like the center of attention here. This is about you. This is your interview, not mine. People already know who I am.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Oh, hold on. Let me send out the snaps. I forgot to do that. Ooh, got the new setup. All right, so Casey, I actually have to show you like what we're doing with the whole setup and everything with the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on. Gotta swipe up.
It's fine.
Should I send you the snap?
You can, yeah.
Join our chat.
Okay, already in chat because
there you go. There's the chat. Okay, so all right, so you see this wall behind me, or this like open area behind me?
Yeah.
All right, so what I imagine myself doing is up on the wall over there is a piece of wood, and it's hanging up by these like hanger things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take like a curtain, like a green screen curtain, and I'm gonna rope it through there so this all comes off. And now you won't be able to see any of that. And so it's just gonna be my face on a green screen, and hopefully I can get like a background.
Couldn't you do that if you just took a curtain rod, like a standard curtain rod from Bed Bath & Beyond, for approximately like $16 and strung it up in
that was $5. Yeah.
Is there one up there?
Yeah, there's one up there.
I
just need to go get the curtain. That's it. I got everything.
Oh, nice.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping, to make this into an actual like studio. Hey, what's up, Dell? Thanks for joining in.
Hello.
That's my boss. So,
oh, hi.
Yeah. My boss always joins in and decides he gives the good old moral support, you know what I'm saying?
That's so nice.
Alright, now that we actually have you on here with decent quality, some of us are working today. Yeah, I know, Dell, you're working every day. What's new? But now that you're on here with decent quality and people can see your face, you're moving fluid, you're not choppy, go ahead and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Wow.
Just a repeat from last time.
From last time? Do I have to? Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Casey Shuey, yeah. And I am a second semester junior at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia, which is like a school that nobody knows about, but there's like a huge naval base over there, so
Yeah.
that's usually why. You know what? I am a sociology major. I just recently switched from biology, and so now I have a social major and a biology minor, and a leadership minor that we're working on.
Dang, girl, you got all these minors.
Yeah, and then I also acapella. I do acapella.
Yeah. At the end of the stream, I'm gonna have to have you sing so we can clip that.
It's like morning-ish.
Haven't woken that voice up. Yeah.
I naturally will see, but
What's your genre to sing in? Do you have a specific? Yeah.
It honestly depends because, I mean, actually, music-wise, like this break has been crazy good for me because for my parents' Christmas gift, did I show you that? Oh, okay. So for my parents' Christmas gift this year, what I did is I took 3 songs. I was gonna do more, but I technically was gonna do a whole album. But I took 3 songs that were like really important to them.
Oh, nice.
And then I basically just figured out how to record. I have like a mic that I got like a couple years ago that's actually like a recording mic and everything. So I did like Glitter in the Air by Pink for my mom, Time in a Bottle, which was my parents' like first dance at their wedding.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I did Rhiannon for my dad, Fleetwood Mac.
Dude, I hope my kids do that for me when I get older. Holy moly.
It was one of those things where like I was just hoping that like it meant like I don't know if it necessarily meant as much to them as it did to me, but like because it meant so much to me, I was so happy this Christmas. Like
you're like one of those girls that if you get like a mixtape from somebody, like that'll be
no, dead ass.
Yeah.
One of my best friends senior year of high school, she was a sophomore, and like I don't know how exactly we became such good friends, but we just started hanging out, and like literally when I graduated, she gave me an entire CD just with like tracks that were based on like our friendship.
Okay, future boyfriend ideas, whoever's watching, you know. Make her a mixtape, guys.
SOS.
Yeah, get her a mixtape. Pie Guy. Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Up to 5 viewers, nice. If you guys are tuning in, this is Casey. She's a sociology major over at which college?
Christopher Newport University.
Yes, and that's in North Carolina, right?
No,
South Carolina.
Jesus Christ, Dylan. I just said everything.
I am so sorry, Casey.
Oh,
It's still early. I have not finished my first cup of coffee. I am working on it. Hello from Australia. Whoa, shoot, man. Thanks for stopping by. We in the U.S. over here.
Yeah, I almost tried to do an accent, and then I was like, that would be offensive. I wouldn't have to accept it.
Yeah, I can't do any accents at all.
I did one the other day, and it was like Irish, but it was just because I was watching Love Island and could like repeat it right after the fact.
Nah, I have friends that are really good at doing accents, especially Kaylor. I mean, Kaylor's Asian, so he's got the Asian accent down perfectly.
No, he always talks about his mom.
Yes, oh my gosh, man. Kaylor's a monster when it comes to talking about his mom, especially in an Asian accent.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He's hilarious.
I love Taylor.
Yeah, that dude's a monster, though. Oh my gosh.
Oh well, I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Hold on one second. My mom is calling. That's awkward. Sorry, guys.
Exactly. Oh my god.
Oh, man. Oh, my mom. I don't see it, though. Australian accents apparently really difficult to emulate. I don't see it, though. Well, for an American, it's really hard. Especially since I'm uncultured and I can't emulate any accents.
If you gave me an example, I could probably like figure it out, like for a short period of time.
I mean, I could get the crocky, mate, and that's about it. I mean, I can't do anything else. It's cringy. I'm not gonna lie, but it's cringy.
It'd be like that. Anyway.
Yeah. Say, just say good day, mate. Oh, okay. All right. That wasn't too bad.
You gotta get the oh, you oh
Good day,
it's
mate.
is it good eye?
Good
It's
day.
spelled out, right?
Good day, mate.
Never mind. I feel
Hey,
bad.
hey,
I
hey.
really do. I really feel like it's not
Oh
okay.
man, I'm gonna have some Australian pulling up later and being like, "Yo, I watched your stream. You're complete ass. Sit down. I'm gonna teach you." Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
pretty much. Um. Anyways,
Anyways, why did you choose your major?
why did I choose my major?
Yeah.
Because oh, a lot of different reasons. But basically, I went into college planning to be a doctor. So in high school, I played soccer
Oh,
and
okay.
planning to go to college specifically for soccer. I was planning on like going D1, doing that whole thing, trying to make a career out of that. It ran in my family because my
Mm-hmm.
dad. So I don't know, when I had a knee injury junior year, I ended up spending a year and a half trying to recover from my surgery, and then I did not fully recover. They told me that I wasn't cleared for the next like 3 to 5 years
Really?
after after I had already been waiting like a year and a half.
Did you
Yeah.
feel
So then I spent.
devastated?
What did you say?
Did you feel devastated, or were you kind of like relieved?
I was definitely devastated for a period of time. Like that was the first time. That was my first like I would say experience with depression. Like full heartedly, I spent 2 weeks in bed like sobbing. It was one of those like situational like post op depression kind of scenarios after my
Right.
surgery. I just did not handle it well because that was my future and in my little mind back then. So yeah, there was a lot of tears with that, a lot of growing that had to be done. But then I spent
Oh, thank you,
that
Pie
year and a
Guy.
half.
Sorry, I was just giving them a thank you real
Oh, sorry,
quick.
I was trying to catch up. Anyway, um, no, but then I ended up spending a year and a half in a really freaking cool facility for it's like an aquatic physical therapy place,
Oh, really?
and I ended up basically interning for community service hours for my high school, which I didn't like. That wasn't necessarily what I was necessarily supposed to do for those, but I mean, it satisfied the requirement, and I got a lot of good experience. I got to help a lot of people too, which was cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I got to study a lot though, and I was 100% sure. I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna be a doctor. That's what I'm gonna do, you know. And then I went to college, was like dean's list the first 3 semesters and
Mm-hmm.
still on that biology track and everything, and then I took organic
Oh,
chemistry.
yeah, that's the class. That's the class. Gets
And
everybody.
no, well, there was that, but there was also just the fact that like I don't know, I kind of just realized that like I got to be good at being or at medicine and everything because of the situations that I was dealing with.
Right.
And like it wasn't necessarily that I had a natural affinity for it. It was more that I had I had developed a knack for it out of necessity in my
That's
life.
an interesting
So yeah, so it's one of those
assessment.
things like I genuinely want to just like do something good,
Right.
you know? And like I thought that that was like the quickest and easiest solution to fulfilling that goal.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I ended up like going to school and I took a couple sociology classes and I was like, holy shit, like I absolutely love this because I can put a lot of myself into that study, you know what I mean? Like every class that I had that's a social class, I sit there and I teach the whole time with my professors and everything. And I don't know, it's not necessarily that it's conversation based, but it's very conceptualizing society
Right.
and it's all things that are important that you see in your everyday life that like you enact in your everyday life that you need to
Yeah.
learn about to understand what is going on in like the general aspect of like the world, you
So
know?
that's why I like the psychology field and sociology and all the things that are involved in that sort of realm is because for the longest time there has been a disconnect between politics and religion or philosophy, but I feel like that bridge is psychology. I feel like in order to maintain correct political views or status or alignment with the current generations, because as things change and as people get older, obviously uh, politics change. But with that comes philosophy. And with the philosophy behind it and religion or however you want to view that word, it's a difficult disconnect, and I think the only thing that kind of connects the two or bridges the gap is psychology, because we need to be able to understand, how does our human mind work, what's our natural affinity for these things. So
psychology just has a lot of the biological aspects, like the chemical processes in your brain, um, chemical processes in
right,
life that affect your brain, like that, whether it's directly or indirectly. Um, and it really just like combines how that affects your social capabilities,
right,
how your social capabilities affect that as well.
okay,
So it's whereas I don't know, like so sorry, I call it soc.
yeah, you're fine.
Sociology is generally very much a tool to use in order to not necessarily solely define terms, but define the processes that you see
Mm-hmm.
and that have affected a society that it's just kind of like something that you understand that you don't actually think about. So it's
Right,
like, I don't know, it's the fact that housing today, like if you look at a racial dot map across the United States, housing is 100%, like not 100%, but very, very, very segregated. And it's because of things that happened in the past. And it's not that it's necessarily like enforced today,
right,
but because of how things were done in the past, how certain legislation was, how certain um, companies were run when society was developing, they stuck around, you get stuck in a cycle, and then sociology kind of analyzes that, not necessarily how the history affects it, but how people respond to things like that.
that's a good
And
assessment.
solutions we could potentially employ
Right,
is the solutions is not what they stress, but that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm trying to work on because that's what
right.
I want to do. I slash potentially may go to law school.
I got you.
Yeah.
No, my boss and I, we've had definite conversations on that aspect. The psychology of racial segregation and racism in 2019, whereas our generation hasn't really seen so much actually happening in front of us, whereas his generation did. He kind of grew up with that. That's the cultural norm for him. And he kind of enlightened a few things when we were talking to me about how, although there isn't a lot going on right now in our generation, 2019, there still is that pre-psychological burden that was brought up and that translates still into this cultural of society today. So, for example, even though someone might not have experienced slavery at like directly, their ancestors did. So like so someone's grandfather did, and that psychology could have transferred out, but depending on how you teach somebody, how you raise them, how you interact with them, that whole psychology can affect someone's upbringing and then in turn trickles down to the next generation. So we're actually combating these things right now.
Exactly,
So
and I
I
talk a lot about that because, like, with the whole patriarchal society,
yeah,
how that translates, but now how, whatever, women are perpetuating it a lot behaviorally because we are so socialized to just live that way to where I don't know, it's similar to a lot of other things that, oh, sorry,
you're fine.
that I've like have to realize that a lot of the expectations and a lot of the standards that we live by, like in our society now, were not things that we necessarily consented to. like the expectations that were set for me, like since I have been an adult, I had already set them before then, before I was actually reasonably capable of developing those ideas and those thoughts for myself. And so like that's how it happens. Like I'm not saying that that's a terrible thing. That's how life works. But because of that, I've had to go back and just think through all of the expectations that I set for myself, and which ones do I agree with and which ones do I not think are valid for me.
Well, I think that's the whole point of society and culture as in general, because when you think of culture, I think a lot of people want to tear down these preconceptions of what culture is. And it's like, hold up, wait a minute. If we tear that down, then you'll have to think of all these rules for yourself, and that's not any better than what we already have.
Yeah.
I think the idea of culture is to generate a I guess, a predicated way of living without having to exert a lot of cognitive energy. And that's important. Unlearning is a major part of adulthood. Hey, Dale, you're still sticking around. And hey, Jordan, welcome back. But, so that's what I kind of come to, is that whole idea that, culture is good to an extent when you understand and you have the cognitive ability to evaluate what works for your life and what doesn't work for your life. And in turn, also evaluate, although it might not work for your life specifically, it works for somebody else's life. So I think we all have to be aware of the value that culture has on our own individuality or collectivism, for that fact.
I would agree. I just think that as a society, we are struggling more and more to break those cycles. So things that like norms that are from thousands of years ago, not necessarily to the same degree, obviously, but at the same time, norms from that long ago are still enacted in some ways today. And like they like show through, even though that's not what the actual like belief system is.
Right.
But because of how innovative and technologically advanced and how large our population is, it takes so long to break any kind of cycle like that. So at this point, we have grown so much and advanced so much that we are now realizing like all of these things that, okay, we're getting too big to have this. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, at this point, like look at women's rights. Women's rights is too big to have a lot of issues with the patriarchal society that we have, but people are still having these problems that shouldn't be as large as they are based on what the actual views are that are present in the generation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like, I don't know, society's been on an upward kind of my cat is on her scratch post, and I was like, who the fuck is here? There should be.
That's funny. So I have a question.
God. So go ahead.
All right. So we talked about the patriarchy and the matriarchy a little bit. Do you think that, how do I phrase this without sounding like a...
It was. Are you just gonna say, do I think that women should be in power? Like it
no,
should be a matriarchy?
No. I think
no.
Your mic's breaking up. Say it again.
Oh, it is?
No, you were fine. It just chopped in and out for a second there.
Okay. No, go ahead. What were you gonna ask me?
All right. So what I was going to ask is, all right. So I'm reading this book, and it's called The Art of Power, and then along with it talks about the art of seduction. So there is The Art of Seduction is a great book if anybody hasn't read it. But basically it talks about seduction as an art form, obviously the title. I don't know why I just said that. But anyways, but it mainly originated from women. Like women developed the art of seduction because men were more upfront with their power tactics. Men were strong. Men were, forthcoming with whatever they needed, and they were able to take control physically.
No, men never felt like they needed to win it. They felt like they could take it if they wanted it.
So
It wasn't something they had to, like, whatever, weasel their way into. You know what I mean?
right, and so the book talks about
Tactic.
yeah, so the book talks about how great book. Oh, you've read it? Yeah, it's a fantastic book. But the book talks about how women have developed this art form to basically weave their way into power, and it's a powerful technique. And I mean, Julius Caesar was seduced by Cleopatra.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a saying that behind every great man is an even better woman.
Catherine the Great, wild. Literally, Catherine the Great. Just side note, weird facts that I know. Catherine the Great, literally, her mom got her married to like the king of like Russia, maybe. I don't know. I don't know which country. I don't know. Okay, either way, her mom got like talked to this king or whatever and was like, "Hey, like my daughter like needs a husband," and
Right.
she was princess of some German colony or Polish colony or something. And then she goes, they get married. The dude's like, "You're ugly," and she literally like develops like an entire like harem of men that
Yeah.
like just she's got. And yeah, very powerful woman, proud of her, but at the same time like,
well, that's the point I'm trying to make is like there's power aspects in that, because a woman can literally control a man's actions. I mean, that's the whole problem with the incel movement right now that's going on. There's like a fight back against. I don't understand the incel movement at all. I think it's just a bunch of horny dudes that really can't get anything. And I'm not trying to piss anybody off, but involuntary celibacy.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Well, no, for real. Like it's a bunch of dudes that literally like hate on women. And I have this app called iFunny, and if anybody knows what iFunny is, it's just a meme app, and people can comment on memes. And as I go through the memes, there are sometimes memes with girls that women have produced, and it's funny, but
girls that women have produced.
Sorry, it's a meme that women have produced.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Girls and boys, women produced.
Yeah. But when you scroll down into the messages, you'll see that a lot of these incels are basically like, women aren't funny, women can't be funny, they should just go back to the kitchen. I'm like, all right, I get it's a joke, but like literally this is on every single post that women have made, and it's like there's growing support for this incel movement. I'm like, dude, you're just horny, you just need to get laid, bro.
It's one of those things where, as much as the general progress at this point of society is very, very good. We are much more open-minded as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There, especially the younger generations for sure. Millennials, yes, of course. There's a lot of growth with believing that sexism is a problem and that it should be solved. There are still people that are going to cling to the traditional whatever, women should be in the kitchen. That's whatever. It's something that people are going to cling to, and it's something that, as much as that is still a problem and that is an issue, all the people that say those things that are like, yeah, women belong in the kitchen, until they are making a woman actually go in the kitchen, and until a woman actually agrees to sit and go in the kitchen, right, it isn't a problem. You know what I mean? That's not the issue as much as the issue is when it plays into everyday life for a woman and a man.
Okay.
When men feel that they need to filter the way that they act around women, and when women feel that they need to filter the way that they act around men.
Well, that's how all social constructs are created, though.
Yes. I'm not saying like no filter in that sense, but at the same time, when women operate under a fear of men, and women operate under a sense of having like a more dominant position in a social exchange.
Okay.
You know?
So
and about that with like tips
You
at
just broke
restaurants,
up. Hey,
stuff
restate that.
like that.
Restate that. You just broke up.
Okay. I said we kind of talked about that last time with like tips at restaurants, how
Mm-hmm.
women have to kind of cater to the like whatever the man decides that he will set the tone of the table to, if it's like a whatever, like a business meeting with men. And so if they're gonna treat, one of my friends told me, she was like, if they treat me like I'm stupid, then I'm gonna play stupid because that's gonna be more likely to make me money. If they're going to treat me like I am, or if they're gonna like flirt with me, like yeah, I might flirt back because that'll make me more money. If I'm gonna do whatever, they set the tone for however she's gonna act.
Right, and I hate to say it this way, but that construct goes along with men too. I mean, that's
Oh,
not only just a female, I
oh,
guess,
100%. No, it
personality.
started with men. It started with men, like that just by nature. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna take that away, but at the same time, like a lot of the people that want to solve the issue are not men.
Hey, Kaylor says, "What game is this? White Women Simulator?" Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry.
All right, bye, Jordan. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Um, but you said something earlier about openness and how you believe that might be a good thing. Um, I is there a problem with having too much openness? Do you think in society, in culture in general?
I think people forget that decisions are things that still need to happen. Like if you have too much openness, you end up saying like, "Oh, I just don't really care about that. Like it's just not something that like matters to me because it doesn't pertain to me."
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just have that kind of like outlook towards it, like you should at least have your own developed thing, what you think is right and wrong. You know
Right.
what I mean? So when I say openness, I mean openness as to you should be open to understanding how other people think, but you should also be open to developing your own chain of thought. And that's the part of it that I stress more than anything is just like keep your thoughts open. Don't close your thoughts off to the point where you get so stuck in your view
Mm-hmm.
and develop. Because me, like, oh my gosh, I changed. Like, I can't tell you, like, this time last year, I was with a boyfriend. I was really unhappy. I was depressed. And I was really, really, really letting my life fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Shit changes. You know what I mean? So, like, if I had stuck with that, like, I've probably stuck with that for maybe 3, 4 months this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the year, I struggled to open my own thoughts and, like, figure out how to properly think about things to where they made sense.
Right.
And I don't know, just being open enough to give yourself that clarity.
Right, and I think that's an important thing to know is especially with today, a lot of people want to. So we have a house right now, okay, and a lot of people notice that the house is crumbling and it needs to be fixed. Some people want to burn that house down entirely just to build up a new construct, and I'm at the position where I'm like, all right, well, hey, let's see. We don't have to burn the entire house down, okay? Let's figure out what in the house works in terms of culture, in terms of rules that we can all engage by, because that's basically what we're doing. We're all trying to figure out subconsciously how can I communicate with you? What is a correct cultural behavior that you and I can express so that way we can actually live, in harmony. I mean, we're social creatures. So I'm more or less, the house is crumbling. All right, cool. We understood that, but I don't want to burn the house down, but we need to replace the parts.
Yes.
Okay? We need to replace these parts and figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. You're talking about like reform versus
Complete chaos and anarchy.
no, there's like 6 different types, or no, there might be 4 different types of
Uh,
there might be 6 different types of social movements,
mm-hmm.
and it's like the different approaches to it. So there's when you approach it and you try to restructure everything. So you try to tear something down and restart it the way that you want it.
Right.
So think about like radical feminists. And when I say radical feminist, I do mean the people that are like.
All right. Well, so this is actually good because Dell just asked, "What do you know of an experience of people wanting to burn the house down?" So you're about to go into radical feminism. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So radical feminists, and I'm not saying that every radical feminist shares this view.
Right. Right.
I also like if you are a radical feminist. Sorry, one of my friends just called me. She's gonna call me again. I guarantee it. If you are a radical feminist, like you're entitled. Yeah.
Hey, popular.
Yeah. Okay. If you're a radical feminist, I understand. I understand the motivation, but the way to solve sexism is not to have women overthrow men and then develop a matriarchy. That is not the solution.
Right.
Because what will happen is a similar thing with the power struggles. And as much as a lot of women actually do believe that that is a better solution, I'm not one of them. I think that there is a harmony that can exist between the sexes that I think has to do with a lot how people are able to interpret their contexts in their everyday life.
Right.
And how they are able to determine which contexts need a filtered gender expression and which ones do not.
Mm-hmm.
So in a romantic situation, yeah, you're going to have a filtered gender expression, like no matter what gender you fall into along that spectrum. You will have because sex is a gendered thing. Relationships and romance, it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific gender to gender thing, but it is something that like the act of actual sex is a like sexual thing. So you know what I mean? Like you have to filter yourself in that way to some extent. Like not necessarily filter is a weird word, but you have to express yourself in a certain way. You know?
I get it.
Whereas in a work environment, it doesn't have to. You shouldn't have to necessarily act one way if you are a woman at work, and you shouldn't necessarily have to act one way if you're a man at work. What it does, and I don't say that in a like you shouldn't choose to act that way. I'm saying that in a it causes men and women to become very narrow-minded in what they're able to do with their lives.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
What they're capable of as people, what they feel confident in as their capabilities. Like if you look at early child care education, the number of men in it is like maybe like 4%, maybe 2% or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's like a tiny number of men go into early child care education because of the societal stipulations around masculinity and taking care of young children.
Right. So yeah, and I'm completely obviously I understand the whole gender concepts and gender roles and toxic masculinity and you know what gender roles we should fall into as a masculine man, and obviously I don't fit a lot of those because you know I've developed my whole life helping others, you know, dealing with special needs, literally caregiving. So I wouldn't fall into a general typical.
You would be in a non-male dominated field.
Right. So I think and I like what you were saying about the matriarchy taking over the patriarchy and how we shouldn't just burn down one hierarchy in support or in favor of another. We need to kind of figure out how to live in harmony, and that's basically what we're doing with this channel is figuring out, you know, how can both sides of the equation live in harmony and figure out what the hell is going on. I mean, that's partially why I brought up the incel movement earlier, because they want to tear down the whole social construct of dating and figure out, fuck, fuck having sex. Like, that's not even built into our genes anymore, according to Darwinism, but, you know.
Yeah, lol.
Yeah. Our field is actually dominated by men when you consider who has the power and money. Women dominate the caregiving roles. I'm talking about the general, not actually dominated by men. I'm talking about the actual role around caregiving. I wouldn't be considered caregiving is not considered a masculine trait,
Psychology,
huh?
psychology, like educationally, psychology is a male or is a female dominated.
No, no, he's not talking about that. He's talking about our special needs field,
Oh,
what we do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
special. Um, I would actually need to look that up. I
The
caregiving.
caregiving roles, which he's right, the caregiving roles are mainly dominated by women.
Yeah, yeah. Caregiving roles are generally women, but it's like I
But
think special needs care falls under like nursing and healthcare. On like I'm thinking of this one
right.
study that I looked at or that I wrote a freaking paper on.
So
Um,
so the real question is, and that I have, is how much of these caregiving roles are actually dictated by society and our gender roles. Like, do women just naturally gravitate toward these roles? And that's a real question. Like, I'm not trying to state that
so
that's a real thing. I'm just asking a question.
so like a lot. This is why I like sociology. Basically, I you could look at this from a gazillion different aspects. Like there's the biological aspect, which is the oh my god, freaking stupid dog. Ran up against the freaking door and like pounded it. Oh my
Hell yeah.
god, Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyway, um, oh my gosh, what was I saying?
Something about women roles and caregiving and gender and
Oh, um, mm, you can look at it from a biological approach to the idea that like early society, men's natural instinct in early society is to protect the females because they are what is going to produce children which are going to help you survive in society. They literally like women are basically treated like livestock in that sense, in like very early.
Okay, so let's clarify something early on then. You said natural instinct. Do you mean
Okay, when I say natural instinct,
yeah.
I mean I don't even think I can say natural instinct. I just mean traditional ideals. Like when I say
Well, wouldn't it, all right, so here's a question. Would it not make sense that a woman who is childbearing, and this is a real question, that is childbearing for 9 months. I mean, most women know how hard it is to get up and let alone bend over when you're child rearing. So, is it
no,
is it not the natural instinct to say that men would protect them for that 9-month period to develop that tradition? So,
yes, men naturally will, but naturally women will also protect other women that are also in that
okay.
state, if that
Okay.
makes sense. So, and it's one of those things where like, yes, that is the base of it. It's okay, this is part of me and part of you. I want to protect it. It is ours. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That kind of thing. But at the same time, it's also a possessive thing with the woman. A lot of relationships become very exclusive and possessive, and I don't know, almost like the woman's fulfilling a greed of the man.
Mhm.
A lot of relationships that like even I've like been in relationships like that where it doesn't even feel like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a two-way thing. It feels very much like, okay, I'm being put on a pedestal in a like very sexual romanticized way, um but I'm putting him on a pedestal in a lifestyle way.
Okay.
And that's one of the norms that are in a lot of relationships nowadays. It's that
So that's not a feminine thing though. Cuz
a feminine thing. No, that's a both thing.
okay. I'm just
That's
clarifying that. Yeah.
that's my point about the whole thing is that it's not something that I can sit there and be mad about if I'm being treated that way,
Right.
because I understand that, okay, that is literally like how we are raised. I was raised to do the opposite. I was raised to support whoever is my whatever future husband, etc. kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm taught to support the ways that I can and be caregiving to children. I'm taught those things naturally just in my life as a woman. That's something that not necessarily every woman goes through.
Right.
So it's not I can generalize to all women, but there's a lot of that in like there's a large trend of that where women are just the way that you're socialized in a romantic but in a life context as well are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's it's one of the things. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. No, because I was reading a lot of my master's program has to do with gender roles and gender ideals, and I think I can agree that gender roles are social constructs. But I feel as though the word gender and gender roles has become synonymous with each other, and I don't know if that should be stated. I think that gender roles in itself, I agree, are social constructs in the sense that sometimes a man might think it might be his responsibility to lead the household. Um,
I think that the only reason that that is something that needs to be discussed is just do you base gender identity in gender roles or in gender um I mean
and so
gen-
that's
gender identity itself does not mean the same thing as sex. I have to like just I can't make that clear enough that gender is very much a different thing entirely from sex. Is it
and I
tied to it for a lot of cis people? Yes. For people like there's a lot of people that are born intersex, or there's a lot of people that just identify in a different way, or like I don't know. I for my sister, it was always a I feel no desire to do all of these socially constructed things that go coincide with being a woman. I have no
mhm.
desire to do them. I don't want to shave my legs. I don't want to do this and this and this. Like, I don't want to do all of these things. And I always thought it was super weird because I was so willing to do all of these things.
Right.
That was normal and that was what was accepted. I was getting the benefits from society because of the way that I was taken.
Well, again, I think so. Going back into the topic of gender roles and gender identity, I think it's important to distinguish that some of these things that we do, um, in terms of gender roles, in actual gender identity. So, since you're a female and you've been able to associate yourself a little bit better, I'm not saying fantastically, but better with specific cultural gender roles. It's almost sort of created a self-fulfilling prophecy between you and societies. So now that you've gained positive feedback for acting in a certain way, you're now acting these ways because of that positive feedback that you received. And someone that might not have received that positive feedback, might choose to believe something differently. And although they believe something differently and they act a different way, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be happy. Or
Yes, but
they could be depressed because of that.
also you can get the positive feedback for doing something and still not feel like fully fulfilled.
That's true.
That yeah, because my little sister when she was like when I say I knew before she was probably 12 years old
Mm-hmm.
that she was not happy identifying as a girl. I actually know what that meant in my head? No. But can I remember seeing it and getting the vibe for it and like knowing, you know what I mean? And like yes, I could. It wasn't something that she and I were raised almost the same way.
Right.
We are a year and a half apart. Yet when she went to high school and or when I went to one school in third grade, she went to another school. I went to a private school, and she went to a year-round school. She was a little like slightly differently socialized during those years. And it was around then that like things did change. So a lot of it like probably did have to do with like our socialization. Now I have my little sister in the same school that I went to, probably being socialized to be very similar to me. Um, my older sister then went to my school her 8th grade year when I was in 7th grade, so I had been there for approximately 3 years and 3 or 4 years, and she had just started going to that school.
Oh.
So her early high school and stuff, she was already going in as a non-cis, but still technically like just unidentified
Right.
person. You know what I mean? Just non-binary, but didn't know that. Wasn't able to put any labels on it. Felt very alone. Was not happy. You know what I mean? And a lot of that had to do with the fact that she generally did not feel as comfortable expressing herself as a woman as I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were things that shifted. Was that necessarily accepted in our family as easily? No, because our family was socialized to believe one thing, and then as like she grew up, we developed. You know what I mean? Everybody in my
Right.
family,
Okay.
we're
So
very good. Like
so
it's not at all.
I want to ask a question. And although she might not have received the positive feedback from her family about acting, I guess more towards male traits, do you think that she could have possibly received positive feedback from other outlets like her peer groups? And
Hell no.
hell no. Okay.
Hell fucking no. Yeah. No, when I say like my older sister was depressed and
Really?
with dealing with like heavy depression, largely socially induced. A lot of things that like I don't know, just things that I wish that I had been more understanding of at the time. But bullied for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was mortified to even go to school with my sister because I was very close-minded at the time as well. So like I was embarrassed of her, even though that's my sister.
Yeah.
And like it's one of those things where I look back and I'm like, wow, I was a piece of shit. But I grew up. Now we're really tight. We're good. Like I just saw her for Christmas. We got a bottle of wine. We got drunk together. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's something that I used to hold a lot of judgment just in the fact that she didn't like the same people that I did. And like it's something that I thought I was like, wow, she's gonna make my little sister gay. It's contagious. What if I'm gay? What if I can't get my mom children? Like all of these things. And I'm like 12 thinking, oh my God, what if I'm gay and I can't give my mom children? 12 years old thinking that? Like that's traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
That means I already had it fully constructed in my head. I have to be a wife, give kids, things that oh my God, I had already set those expectations in my head just because of like the way that I grew up. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing,
Right.
but that is the nuclear family of our society. That's what the sociological term is. But husband, wife, a couple kids, and well off enough where you can provide a solid education and everything. That is the nuclear family.
What do you mean
You
by
know,
nuclear?
nuclear is like the actual term that I'm saying. It's the just the stereotype for what is the most common slash what is catered to in society. So if you look at grocery stores, if you look at school systems, if you look at a lot of basically a non-nuclear family or a like an abnormal, not necessarily abnormal. I'm trying to think of.
Dell says, I can imagine a group of people with that experience may not mind the house burning down.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I mean that's the whole point of hopefully having these conversations is to figure out, open
Well,
some people's experience.
but that's me. And at the same time, like it took me going to college, like living my own life, being able to look at myself, like introspect enough to say, okay, are these all things that I necessarily agree with? Now, did I break down all of those things that I thought that I was like, okay, these are expectations that I like didn't set for myself? Okay, so let's talk about like me getting married. That's an expectation that was set for me before I was born, that society is just like, yeah, that's a thing, that is the normal thing that you should do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Literally, whatever. I'm told that, yes, okay, so I sit there and I think, all right, do I really want to get married? I do. I do. That's a thing that I genuinely do want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do I want to have kids? Yes, I do. I want to experience giving motherly love. Like, that's something that I want for myself in my lifetime.
Well, I wouldn't say that all of that is socially constructed. I mean,
Oh, no,
I,
no, no, it's not. But
I,
at the same time, I have to acknowledge that that is something that I want for myself.
right.
That is something that I do not have to do on anybody else's timetable other than my own body, whatever, clock and everything like that. But
Well,
all I
the
necessarily. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do I necessarily want to be a serial monogamer?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want somebody who bounces from one monogamous relationship to another monogamous relationship to another one, where I am consistently declining in who I am as a person every time
Right.
I do? When in reality, okay, yes, do I believe in a monogamous relationship for myself, or like the person that I end up with? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But do I necessarily need to do that before I actually am getting before I'm actually in the space where that's what's going to be most beneficial to my life,
Right.
or I genuinely want at that time? Or do I feel like that pressure because of the fact that that's shoved in my face from the time I was like born?
Right, and so I'm not trying to say that marriage is for everybody, because Kaylor said marriage ain't for everybody though, and I'm not saying that it is, and I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of cultural construct behind it, but I do want to state that there are importances to marriage that, evolutionarily speaking, have developed into our own biology. So, for example, Darwinism states the fact that it's part of our species to evolve and pass on. Like, that's the main theory about Darwinism. You want to pass on your genes to the next generation. Now, whether or not how you do that, I'm not saying it's gonna be specifically marriage.
Have to be in a marriage? No, but my thing is,
No,
really does not have to be in a marriage.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but I am saying that marriage has its benefits.
Yes, marriage does have its benefits.
Yes.
Marriage has its benefits for people who want that specific lifestyle. Just like being in a polyamorous relationship has benefits for somebody who will be benefited by that.
No,
lifestyle.
I know I'm like the only person that's like married in this chat right now, so I'm like the odd man out defending my side, but I'm not trying to say I'm defending marriage right now, because I understand, again.
No, but the thing is though, like me, like I also want to get married. I'm not saying it's like a social construct, but it is by definition, because what it is it's literally putting a definition on on an emotional relationship between two people.
Mason says marriage is overrated, and Dell says yes, you are the only one. I'm the only one here. Like, I'm defending this side.
Look, marriage is dope. Marriage is great. Like, it's something that if a monogamous relationship between two people is what will most benefit you, and you feel the need to put a label on it, do so.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? By all means, that fits into society's standards. Then a lot of things get better, like health benefits that you can share.
Well, the only reason why I say that marriage has its benefits is because humans are generally social creatures. We have mirror neurons in our brains to identify what the actions of other people do. We literally we have these mirror neurons to connect with other people. We are social. So there have been benefits where people living in long-term relationships, not toxic, we're not talking about those cases right now, because there are obviously toxic relationships that go on for years. Those are bad for your mental health. I'm talking about the good ones. those people turn out to be better than people that just live on their own. Typically, on average, and I can pull that study up. I will send that to you guys.
Me, like for me, especially, like
and I just want to make this point. Dell said marriage is cool and it's beneficial, just not for everybody. I completely agree, and that's not the point I'm trying to make.
Yes, agreed. No, but it's one of those things where Rick, I was gonna say something and I forgot it.
I just feel like right now there's in 2019 this is another thing that people are trying to burn the house down with. There's been this whole overhaul with the sex culture where, you know what, we don't need to stay in this monogamous relationship anymore. You know what, we can just go fuck whoever we want. And I mean, that's been partially because of the rise with Tinder. Mason and I have talked about this. Partially with the rise of Tinder, there's been this whole like sexualized culture that's kind of been promoted right now. And I'm not saying that this whole promotion of sexualized behavior is necessarily a bad thing. I just think we need to organize ourselves in a way to understand it.
I mean, okay, so I'm not gonna say that it's a bad thing. Hello. Sorry, my cat just got off the table. I'm not gonna say that it's a bad thing. What I'm gonna say is that our society, look at our generation.
That's not what I'm saying, Dell.
Okay, our society at this point is very progressive, yes. But if you look at our generation, if you look at millennials, so millennials is like 1996, I believe, is the legal cutoff. So 1996 and whatever between 1980.
Yeah, I don't think I got you. Millennials.
Yeah. Millennials. Okay, but there's the millennials, and then there's the Gen Zs, which technically I'm Gen Z.
Really, I'm a millennial.
I'm 21. Yeah, and you're millennial. But when you were growing up, at what age were iPhones constantly like around you? At what age were you like really, really encountering people on iPhones like regularly? Actually, you remember that?
iPhones, probably 2009. I would say 9th grade, because I remember before the iPhone was the Razr.
Like, you have an iPhone 3?
Dude, I got an Android. I never had an iPhone.
Did you ever have an iPhone? No.
Android all the way.
Okay, but like when did people start getting like the iPhone like 3s, iPhone 4s, like the little short funky ones?
I don't remember because my mom didn't do that with me. My mom, you know, gosh, it had to have been 11th grade, so that would have been 2011. So it's not been that long.
Okay, wait, but when were the touchscreen phones?
I want to say 2010 to 2011 because I don't think a lot of people... I remember people still having iPods in high school.
Okay, so I just want you to... Okay, so that's you, right?
Yeah.
Look at... So then it's me. I'm after that, right? So I got my first iPhone, I believe, in maybe 7th or 8th grade. 7th or 8th grade?
Yeah, that's about the same time. Maybe like 2 years older.
iPhone 4 or something like that. But that for me, no. So you got your first touchscreen phone. I had my first phone when I was in 4th grade.
Yeah, I had my first phone earlier than that. Touchscreen phone was later.
Flip phone. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So now you go to my little sister, who had an iPhone XR at 12 years old, 11 years old, going into 6th grade. / all of her friends had them before they got out of elementary school.
Yeah.
And we were like the slow ones on that train. So
Hey, I gotta end this stream. I am so sorry. I am about to miss my appointment if I don't get the hell out of here.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I just realized what time it was. Oh my goodness. Oh, I have to drive all the way to Hamilton Mill right now, and I'm in Roswell, and I have to make it there by 1:30, and it's 1:03.
How far is that?
That's like 30 minutes at least.
Okay, Gil.
Fuck! Oh my goodness. Casey, we're gonna have you back on, okay? Because I like this conversation. No, I don't mean to, like, repeat everything we've already said. I mean, you're a good person to have conversation with.
Okay, long story short, now people are addicted to phones, and it fucks with our self-esteem as a generation, and so our entire society is now fucked, and we are not doing as well as we could be doing, and all of the young kids aren't going to be considerably worse, and we need to stop having babies because we're overpopulated. Anyway, okay, have a good day, everybody.
I think I agree with most of what you just said right there, to be honest. No, I definitely think maybe some population control might be...
From our phones, it's literally like shooting up with heroin every time you wake up in the morning. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, social media is crazy. Okay, Casey.
Okay, get up and go to your freaking...
I know, but this conversation was good. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for stopping by. Casey, this was our guest. She was fantastic. All right. Thank you, Casey. You